Well, welcome to the Sports Guys. Another episode. Really happy you're here this evening. We have a great episode for you. A couple months ago, we did an episode on pickleball, which is one of my major passions. You know that Rob and I also have a passion for sports. My third passion in my life is poker. And so we have not done an episode yet on poker, and we've been really pumped about this one. We scheduled it some time ago, and we have a really excellent guest on tonight. How you doing, Maggie?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
All right, well, let's go to the presentation. We got a lot of good slides. Here we go. All right, so Maggie, believe it or not, this is our episode 35. I'm calling
Wow.
it All In Life of a Professional Poker Player with Maggie Fox. And you can see 5 of the tours that are out there, and there's lots more tours that are available. There's actually a Florida poker tour that I just found out about recently. But any of these tours your favorite? I know you just became an ambassador to Rungood.
Yeah, so I would say that my personal favorite probably is Rungood. I think that they have the most fun on their series. I play a ton of the World Series of Poker, but it's sort of mandatory, right? When you're playing
Mhm.
in these fields. So outside of
And also
Rungood,
those.
my other favorite is Gulf Coast Poker.
Okay.
I play a ton of their stops. I'll be at the Beau Rivage in January, and I think that out of all of the series, that they do the best job of taking care of their players.
Okay. Have you ever played on this Texas poker tour at
I
all?
have not. I've not actually heard of it prior to now.
Okay. Yeah. And then WPT, I play a couple events a year at WPT. I really like their structure. Their tournament structures are really good. They're very kind of player friendly, really
Oh,
long
I
levels.
love WPT. WPT is just great all around. It's just I don't get to hit as many of their stops.
Right.
So anytime that it's at the Win, I always try to get out there.
What's cool is, my favorite room is Best Bet, and I'm going to be down there one day. They have a WPT series and they have a Run Good series. So I'm real lucky that they have both of those at that location. So
Nice.
that's very cool. But obviously, World Series of Poker ring or bracelet is what everybody wants. That's the big dog. So, but that's really cool about being ambassador to Run Good. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm
Thanks,
so
man.
stoked about that.
That's super cool. They picked a good girl.
Well, thank you. So we'll be at our first full stop in Cleveland as an ambassador. So it'll also be the first time I've been that far north for poker, which is awesome.
So I just posted your total live earnings, professional poker tour, professional Margaret Fox. When did you drop the Margaret and go to Maggie?
So I've been Maggie my whole life. Margaret is my in trouble name, and so I like to tell people that there's only two people that get to call me Margaret. One of them is unfortunately no longer with us, and the other is the paramedic. Should I do something really dumb?
Gotcha. And then I had to post in your one rings for WSOP. That was just so huge. All of us.
Yes.
I've been playing 20 years pursuing that one ring, and I still don't have it. And I've gotten very close many times, but maybe one day. But
It was
congratulations.
a whirlwind. When I tell you that you have to be lucky to win tournaments, like I mean, I sat down and I picked up quad kings that day. Like, and then I saw kings 5 other times. Like, so
Wow.
again, like you just have to like, and this is after having been one outed out of the main 2 separate times that day. Like, I was so tilted that I was going to drive back to Texas. And my roommate told me, no, no, you're not. We're gonna eat, we're gonna change clothes, you're gonna go and you're gonna play this turbo. And I won the turbo, like, and I couldn't believe it. But like when I
Mhm.
tell you that you have to be blessed by God that tournament, like
Right.
I
For
mean
sure.
it. Like I held in every important spot. Like it
Oh,
wasn't
good.
like I played some incredible game of poker. I just got really, really lucky
It,
that day.
it
Super
seems to
cool.
me like it all has to come together, right? The luck has to join the skill, has to join. You were on your game that day. You were staying away from being in tilt. You ate enough sugars, and
And you have to make some big folds.
you got enough
Some big
rest
folds.
last night. It feels like that kind of all has to come together.
You'll be in some
Yes.
spots where you have to fold too, and that's sometimes really tough for people. There's some really big folds you have to make.
One thing
Yeah,
that
and I
go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh go ahead.
No, please.
I was gonna say that I think that some of those situations where you have to fold, if you can have the self-talk of this saved me from something worse, that
Right.
it makes it a lot easier.
Right. That's right.
Because we
Yeah,
get tired of folding. Folding is not fun. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to play cards. I don't want to
yeah.
fold all day. Ugh.
That's true.
Now, that's the discipline, though, right?
Yes.
So on this slide, I wanted to ask you, tell us what your day's like. Tell us what it's like to be a professional poker player. You wake up in the morning. What time do you wake up? Do you have breakfast? Do you work out? What's your day like as you move towards your tournament day?
So it depends, one, if I am home and playing online or if I am playing live, on what time I'm gonna wake up. But the schedule looks pretty consistent and the same no matter what. So I'll wake up usually 3 or 4 hours before whatever tournaments I'm gonna start playing. I like to wake up and I do a tarot card reading every day to set my direction for the day. And anybody actually that follows me on my socials sees that tarot card. I post it every single day with a quote, and that's the direction that we had that day. And then I study for at minimum an hour. I go through coursework. I usually work out and then I do a bunch of hand drilling. And for anybody that really wants to improve their game, I would say that actually getting in there and running sims and drilling pre-flop ranges is the best thing that you can do,
What do you
because
mean
it
by
just
hand drilling? What does that mean?
um, actually going through programs that stop you as you do things wrong in play. So, like,
Okay.
I'm sitting in the small blind, here are 2 cards. Are you going to fold, limp, raise, and having the program correct you based on whatever its settings are, um, in regards to your play? Um,
Interesting. Huh.
I think that there's immense value to that. And there's so much availability for programs like that nowadays that literally anybody can do it from their cell phone.
Do you think
That's
it's
Uh,
better to study? Do you think it's better to study first and then drill and try to put some of those things to work? Or
So I was the director of training for a long time, and I think that in terms of study, like, it's very important to realize that study is a unique and individual thing. Not all of us study and learn the same way. So for somebody like me, it works really, really well to pick a concept, to review a concept, and then to go and drill it. That does not work for everybody. Like, some people can't learn from a video. Some people need to sit there and read. Some people need color coded charts. Some people prefer Excel sheets. Like, it really, really is unique and individual how the
Mhm.
human brain processes these things.
Mhm.
So I would hate to paint with that broad of a brush. But what I will say is that it's invaluable to have something automatically stop you and let you know when you've made a mistake instead of
Mhm.
allowing you to carry on, through the
Mhm.
rest of the hand thinking you did it right. It's also invaluable to be able to understand what you're looking at and know that what that is calling a mistake is not always actually a mistake. And I think that
Mhm.
that's really, really important too. That, like, we get into all of this computer work, but garbage in is garbage out. First off, it's the same as like in math class in high school. If I have put in a bunch of junk that doesn't actually make sense in the real world and isn't applicable to the real world, then a bunch of junk's going to come out. And not everybody is playing the way that the computer's playing. And so I think that a lot of people get carried away with that too, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
well, I studied, so I should be winning. No, you studied so that you hopefully improved your game, but your job is still to adjust to the person next to you. Just
Gotcha.
because you're not playing 10-5 off doesn't mean that they aren't. And you need to be aware of that.
So you wake up 3 hours before you play. You have a little breakfast, I guess, probably. Um,
Honestly, I'm not a big eater in the
you know,
mornings. I
okay,
work I work I study, I work out, and then I slam a protein shake, and I usually
okay,
have lunch before I start playing.
gotcha.
But there's plenty of days where I do a fasted day as well. I do believe that fasted days, if you can handle them, make you a lot sharper.
Mhm.
If it's going to tilt you emotionally, though, and some of us do tilt when we're hungry, then you need to have snacks.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you go play, and your typical day is, well, it depends on how you do in the tournament, but your typical day is what, 8 to 12 hours, probably.
Yeah, usually at minimum.
Mm.
And if tournaments have not gone well, then it could be as long as 16 hours. So, like, for example, a lot of what happened last week during the Rungood Series is I would bubble one event and then immediately hop into the very next event, like, because, well, we only make money if we play. So there was a
Right.
couple of days where I sat down on a felt at 11 a.m. in the morning and I got back to my place at 3 a.m. and all I did that day was play poker.
Wow,
Hmm.
it's quite a grind. But you're treating it like a job, right? I mean, you have the same day every day for the most part. You're kind of on a routine.
Yes, but so truthfully, a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, I am wildly ADHD. So if I am not on a routine, then it just all goes to shit, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
it
you
the
play better,
second,
right? You play better
yeah,
when you're on schedule.
Oh my God, I really, really do. Like it's that's been one of the most challenging parts actually, is because like the social life in poker is so alive and well, and it's
Mhm.
so easy to like want to go and have drinks with all your friends and go to
Right.
dinner and like go to music and all of that. But like the truth is that I play like garbage after about 3 days of all that.
Okay.
So it can be really hard to look at everybody and go, bye guys, I gotta go be a nerd.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because I don't want to be poor. So
Because I don't want to be poor. That's funny. Well, let's talk about taking the plunge. What were the things that you considered before you quit your job? And I've got a couple here that we can talk about. Do you have enough money in your bankroll? Is your family or partner supportive? What about your friends? And you've talked about that already. You have a good network. Are you good enough? Poker's a game of skill and luck, of course. We talked about that as well. Do you have the patience or the demeanor for poker on a daily basis with the tremendous ups and downs and the variance? So any of these kind of hit you on what your considerations were when you tried to decide to take the plunge or not?
yeah, actually, it's so funny. I think that just being fully honest, that I didn't think through enough of these when I took the plunge. I really did like actually just plunge like a crazy person. Like I wouldn't recommend what I did to absolutely anybody. Um, and if we're honest about it, like at the time that I went full time last December, when I like actually quit my job, I was not good enough. I was not even close to good enough. Um, Even now, like I would say that I'm not good enough to have like quit my job and be doing this full time.
Hmm.
What I am doing is in the hopes that by full immersion and by dedication, like a true athlete, that I can
Hmm.
get there, right? And that I'll get there
Hmm.
before I run out of the ability to do that.
Gotcha.
Because this is hard. Most people do fail out of this industry if you do this full
Mhm.
time. And I would say to anybody that the number one consideration before you quit your job and do this needs to be, can I mentally handle stepping out of my ability to value money like a normal human being?
Hmm.
And we
Yeah,
don't talk about that.
that
Like
makes sense. Yeah.
this has destroyed my sense of money in
Hmm.
every single way. Like I hesitate to buy myself a new pair of jeans, but I will go and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on tournaments or on study. So I just think that we don't talk about that. Like, and
Right.
it's
Yeah.
really, really challenging, the type of stress that it can bring to have your foundational viewpoints around money shift, and then to step out of a normal 9 to 5 job where you have that reliability. Like it's
Mhm.
stressful and
It's a really,
overwhelming.
it's a really good point. There's some other considerations here. Do you know what your best game is and type of tournament? Did you kind of go through that analysis and figure out, okay, I want to play Hold'em and I'm going to play, $500 tournaments and less or $500 tournaments and more? Did you go through that analysis?
I know. So I only play Hold'em. I said, I really, really love Hold'em. And I said, I can afford to play this. We'll take some shots up here. So let's go for it with the 400s and under. And that's what I play primarily. Like, and
Yeah.
I do take shots at some of the higher buy-ins. But like that was not a clear articulated thought process until I was probably 2 months in, because I didn't have the experience to know what I liked. Like
Mhm.
truly I didn't. Like I should have gone and like explored some more circuits and like actually played a lot more poker before I did this. I really should have, like, if we're being honest about it. And I have no regrets for how I did it, because it's been a very magical ride. But I think that like I added on layers of stress that I didn't need to add on
At
just
the
by the
same time,
sheer not knowing what I'm doing.
and your advice is really good to anybody who's watching this program if they're thinking
Yeah.
about doing this, that they need to consider a lot more than you did. At the same time, to be successful in anything, you have to be all in, right? And you were all in. So that's a
Yeah,
good
I mean, we're gonna burn the ships for better or worse. Like I will live in a box before I give this up, but
right,
that's not necessarily the healthiest thing either, right? And that's
right.
why, like, again, you have to be a little bit mentally unsound. You really do.
I love that, Robbie.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So another one was, are you near a good poker room so you can practice in between events? Of course you are. You live in the Dallas area, and you've got, TCH, and you've got Oklahoma's nearby with all
Mhm.
kinds of great casinos and poker rooms. Has that been a help, or are you mostly practicing online?
TCH has been a huge help. So actually, if you look at my Hendon Mob, the week before I went to Cherokee for the first time, I took a first, a second, a third, a fourth, like all in a week, like
Oh
at
wow.
Texas Card House playing their daily tournaments. So when I think of live play and live poker and where I really learned how to play like a turbo structure and
Right.
how to like buckle up and enjoy poker, I think of Texas. And after having traveled the country, I will tell anybody poker plays different in Texas. If you're going to come and play poker in Texas, do 3 shots in the car, buckle up, and let's go. But we're going to
Yeah,
15x you from under the
especially in the,
gun.
especially in the
Like,
cash game, especially in the cash game, because it's the stand up game and the knit game and all these different crazy
mhm.
games they play in Texas.
And it's so
Mm,
fun. So I
yeah.
think that like if you can survive in Texas, then like you have the ability to ride the mental waves, right? Because you are going to hit more variance here than most places.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because
I'd say Texas,
we're crazy.
Texas and Florida are the best poker in the country, in my opinion.
I,
Vegas, it's okay during the events, but for the most part, if you go to Vegas in an off time, the poker's not very good. That's just been my experience.
See, I tend to avoid Vegas because I think that it has a higher concentration of people that are like really, really good at this game. And I
Right.
think that game selection is the biggest thing as a player that like you can do to manage your bankroll is to choose fields where you belong in. And sometimes it can be hard to be humble about it, right? And say,
Mhm.
well, there's a million people who are crazy good at this game. They're all going here, and it looks fun. I'm gonna go here instead. I stand a better chance. And honest to
Right.
God, that's why I did so well in Hammond, is because like I love all of my friends, but all of my friends are so much better at this game than I am at the and I have no shame in saying that. Like they've earned it.
Mhm.
They've been here, they've put the work in, they've experienced it. Like at the end of the day, like I am a newbie. And so it's great to have them all around me, but sometimes I need to avoid them to create opportunities for myself, right?
Just think 5 years from now, Maggie, how good you're going to be if you just keep studying every day like you're doing. It's going to be
That's
fun
the
to
Yeah,
goal,
watch.
right? Like
you're
the
putting in
goal
the
is to
study
grow.
time. You're putting in that study time. It's going to pay off.
I
So another,
actually like love studying more than I love playing, to be honest with you. Like I think that
really,
this game is a language and it's about how we talk to one another. And I just think that it's the most fascinating thing in the world. And so to be able to read and understand and speak to everybody in this language, it makes
Mhm.
me happy.
It's true. It's very true. I speak differently when I'm on a poker trip, for sure. So, a couple other considerations here. Can you mix up your type of play, aggressive versus patient? How much do you mix up your play? Let's say you play a 16-hour day. Like, are you aggressive, patient, aggressive, patient? Are you one way the whole day? Is it based on your mood?
Oh, it's super, super mixed. I'm way, way, way more aggressive in the early stages of tournaments when I can like really kind of bully people and collect chips.
Mhm.
Then towards like that money bubble, like oftentimes I will start to slow down and pay attention. That's when I start to get a little bit more selective about my aggression. Like,
Right.
uh, who can I pick on? Who do I need to stay away from? Like, because then it becomes about making the money.
Mhm.
So I think that for me, the biggest key is the awareness of which player can I be aggressive against and which one can I not, versus like a time period in the tournament specifically.
Mhm.
Mm.
That's good.
Like I'm a dummy. Like my biggest like punts always are when like I get aggressive against the chip leader because it's the one person that can hurt me. And that's the time where I really should like get off the gas. But of course, like for whatever reason, all 5'2" of me is like, let's go.
Because that's Maggie Fox,
Why'd you do
aggression.
that?
Yeah.
Why'd you
Yeah.
do that?
What about this chip up period of the tournament? Because if you're aggressive early, are you also aggressive during this period? Because a lot of times you'll see the real tight players kind of settle in, right? And they'll even give up their blinds during this period. So
Oh
this
yeah.
is oh, I'm actually not very aggressive. I'm pretty patient, but this is the one time I get kind of aggressive is when it's chip up period.
Learning to be aggressive during the chip up period has been my favorite kind of transition that I've started to make, just because I wasn't able to do it previously. Like even 6 months ago, like I could clearly point out where like I was not capable in the thought process of doing it effectively. And now I am. And so yes, like very much like the I ramp the aggression up a lot during the chip up process. Like I hate to admit it, like, but like I'm 3-betting with some dirty stuff.
You're back to
Like
the 7-5 offsuit.
I mean, so there's if you play it all with me, you will learn that I almost never show a hand. And if you ask me about my hands, like, and if you ask me to show, my standard response is that I play by stripper rules and I only show when you pay me off. And
Ah,
that's because if I start
yeah.
showing the frequency with which that I'm doing some of these things, people are not going to be happy. Like,
And they'll never fold.
and, and
So,
exactly like, and so
yeah.
kind of back to the female thing, a lot of times people tend to assume that females are playing tighter. And
Right.
so if I don't show you my cards and I'm 3-betting and you're assuming that I'm only playing aces or kings, that's better for me. I
Right.
don't want you to think any differently than that. And so if you're going to think differently than that, you're going to have to pay for it.
I didn't put on here, you need to also be mentally unbalanced, but I guess I should have put that on here.
I really like,
What
yeah,
do
I
you think
really
it
do
was?
believe that you have to be crazy because
Yeah.
like the amount of instability that we face, like you have to be willing to roll with it.
Well, let's talk bankroll management because, as an experienced player, I have a note here that you can get by with 30 buy-ins. If you're a pro poker player, you want to have about 100 buy-ins in your bank account. What's your thought about bankroll management? What's your recommendation to people as they're getting started?
I think that those are all really, really, really good rules of thumb. I also think that the most important thing for somebody getting started is that your bankroll and your life roll need to be two separate things. And they need to never intersect. Like your poker money is your poker money and your rent money is your rent money. And if you're playing with your rent money, we might have a problem.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that that's really the biggest key is because it's super, super easy to like make that transition into, well, now I got to pull from over here. And then when this becomes your job, like that automatically kind of gets tied up, right? Like, so it's much, much more difficult to keep those things separate and you have to be disciplined.
Are you still
Because
able
But
to?
if,
Are you
but if
still
you
able to
have,
do it? Then? Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, if you have a certain amount that you keep in your bankroll, and then you win a tournament, that money stays in the bankroll, or you move it into life money, and maybe I pay for our next vacation or something.
Well, so it depends, right? So, like, I think that the first thing to address here is downswings, and downswings are a very real thing. If you play any amount of full-time poker, then you
Mhm.
are probably in a downswing. So, anytime that you win, it's just the same as a business, right? Like, that's your profit and
Mhm.
loss statement. The very first thing that happens with any of that money is it goes to paying the bills, and the bills is my downswing. So the first thing I have to do is clear my downswing and replenish my bankroll. And then I have to decide what to do with the rest after I've replenished my bankroll. Do I add to my bankroll here? Do I pay rent for 6 months with it? Do I invest some of it in this, that, or whatever? Do I go on vacation? Like, so I think that there's a lot that goes into that, right? Like, but the very
Yeah.
first thing that happens with any poker player, I think, is that we pay our debts and we clear our downswings.
Priorities.
I never thought of that. That your downswing is kind of like a bill, and that you want to pay off your bill or pay off your debt. So that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. So what about these benchmarks? 30 buy-ins versus 100 buy-ins, 50 buy-ins for beginners. You think these are good limits?
I think they're low, to be honest with you. I do. I really think that like I think they should be at least double. And I hate to say that, like, and I know it sounds astronomical. And double may be the wrong figure there, but I just think that we really, really underestimate what it takes to make it in the poker world and how hard it is, how often you are going to like just absolutely brick every single tournament in a series and how expensive that really is. What it takes when you go from I'm going to fire one bullet to I'm going to fire three and how that impacts the rest of your trip.
Mhm.
The the cost that goes into travel and into food and into lodging. I just think that these numbers are somewhat short-sighted and don't paint a clear picture.
Are you able to maximize your write-offs when you do your taxes?
Yes, but I mean, I have a really, really good tax firm that is helping me with it. I would never be able to manage it on my own.
Okay.
But I track receipts like a crazy person. Like I have every tournament receipt, I have every food receipt, I track every bit of mileage. Like, and I do think that poker players that aren't doing that are losing out in a big way.
Right.
If you treat this as a business, I think that you have an inherent advantage.
No question. Well, let's talk about variance and how to handle it. Rob asked you a question earlier, kind of how do you deal with it? What's your mental process to kind of get through it? You have negative and positive variance. You have dealing with variance. You have a little chart there on the right that I put in that was really interesting to me. When you flip 500 times or 1,000 times, it's still going to come out somewhere in the 50% range, maybe a little bit above, a little bit below. So how do you deal with this mentally? What's your kind of mental process to get through it?
First off is recognizing that it is all statistics at the end of the day, and like understanding that it is not that like that God hates you or something is out to get you or that you're just inherently unlucky. That variance is nothing more and nothing less than a small sample showing of statistics. And it might feel really ugly in that moment, but statistics all balance out at the end of the day. So sometimes it's about understanding that I just have to keep grinding and going until this stops. And in those moments, it's challenging to like take some of those emotional step backs, right? Like, because you just kind of feel a little demoralized. So I think that those are the times where we have to add that extra layer of patience and go, I know things are going badly, which means I can't just get on the gas and try to push and make them better, right? Like, I can't just lay out a bunch of extra three bets trying to collect chips out of desperation. Like, I need to be very aware of the way that those feelings impact my behaviors and impact the way that I think about the things that I want to do and then adjust from there.
Do you
I
think you
just,
play? Do you think you play better on a heater, or do you play better when you're in a downturn and could potentially dunk off, but you hold yourself back? Like, do you play better when you're on a heater, or better when you're kind of having to play tight?
so I don't know. My goal is to play consistent all the time and then to allow my heaters to come, right? Like, so I want to be playing at the same level, whether or not the cards are cooperating with me. And then I believe that my job is to capitalize on the heater with those same skills and that I create more opportunities through my consistency, if that makes sense.
It does. So, like,
Like
those 2 weeks you had, I think you made a final table, you went heads up and you lost. And then wasn't it a week later that you were heads up and you won the ring?
I went heads up 3 times in 3 weeks and
Three
I
times in
lost
3 weeks.
twice and won my third time.
So you were kind of on a heater if you think about that. Like, that's almost
I,
impossible to go heads
I
up
still
3 weeks.
am, truthfully, I still am. Like things are going well despite having bricked a series. Like, and I think we don't talk about that too, is that like you still have big losses in between
Right.
because I
Right.
busted 4 bullets in the main event and bagged nothing. I had not caught a single bag in an event since August until last night online. Like, so I think that like we're also not honest sometimes about the fact that like a heater doesn't mean you're winning everything.
Right.
Like,
It just means you're on the upswing of the variance for sure.
yes, and
So,
that you're capitalizing in those spots where you are upswinging.
so how did you feel when you lost the first one heads up, and then how did you feel when you lost the second one? Like, were you just because really you should feel elated, like you've just beaten 1,000 people, but there's one person you couldn't beat, kind of thing.
So the first one, I felt like it was such a dang miracle for me to be sitting there at all. Like I'm not joking. By five-handed in the final table, I was looking at my chip stack and I was looking at the people around the table at me because there's a guy named Dwayne and he was playing and he is just an absolutely killer player. He's amazing. And I thought for sure Dwayne was going to win. Like I already had it in my head that like if you're smart and you're tight, you can fold your way to third. and make a little bit of money to go into this next trip with.
Right.
So when Dwayne busted and I was heads up all of a sudden, I was so floored to be heads up that I just couldn't believe that I was there at all. Like I was
Right.
like, what a
Right.
miracle. Like so
Right.
then I kind of didn't know what to do, like because it was my biggest like heads up spot to date and I was against a player that I knew at least like he'd been playing really well all night long.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um so that first one, like I was so stoked and I was so excited, and to
So you
me
weren't
it
really
was,
disappointed because you were just so happy to be there, right? To get
oh
heads up.
God, no. And then on top of that, I have 100% of the video. So like I'm a studier. To somebody like me, to have that video is worth more than first place prize because I get to pick that video apart for the rest of my life and extract the value.
Right.
So the ability to pick that apart is what then led to the next two occurring and led to me getting a little bit better. The
Gotcha.
second one, I the second one I was disappointed, but it's hard to explain. The guy picked up so many pocket pairs during heads up play. Like I just never stood a chance, to be honest with you. And I
Mhm.
played this game often enough that
Right.
I knew that I had brought everything I had. I had done my absolute best, and it just was not my turn. I really
Yeah.
believed in my
So it's
heart
their
that
it's their
that it
time.
wasn't my
It
turn.
was- Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
And I
their time.
told people. So I had people call me the next day. Actually, one of my closest friends, he goes, you fish, like you should have two rings, like you fish, like. And I said, no, I couldn't win that week because my friends weren't here to be in my picture. I
Mhm.
couldn't do it without you guys,
I
like.
love it.
And so
I
then I
love it.
had friends show up and I immediately won, and so that tells me that like yeah, like there really is something to it just not being your turn. And I think that we need to have the humility to admit that no one deserves a win in poker, and that is the magic of it, is that no matter how good you play, no matter how well you ran all day, like
Right.
nobody deserves it.
So when you got heads up third time, were you just like, were you feeling good, like I might win it this time? Because you kind of feel it.
I knew I was going to win from the minute I sat down that day. Like, so first off, like I know this sounds strange, but like if you look at my Insta post and I have it, I pulled it. I never go to tournaments dressed like a girl. Like I'm always in a ball cap and in like
Right.
sweatpants.
Right.
That day, I went back and I put on skinny jeans and a nice shirt, and I posted to my Insta and I said, our main event dream is dead, but we've come back disguised as a real girl. Maybe we can trick them into a ring.
A real girl.
And so I sat down at the table, and the very first hand I picked up kings and I hit quads for max value. The second hand I hit kings again and picked up max value. And I had that moment. I sat there looking at those chips and I went, this is your tournament to win. Do not fuck this up. If you don't win this, this is on you.
That's
Like,
right. That's right.
and so then I remember sending a text that I had the chip lead for the tournament when we were down
Mhm.
to 3 tables,
Mhm.
and I never lost the chip lead. Like it just like it was one of those magical times of like
Mhm.
I know I'm gonna win it. And it was even more important to me because Hammond is just outside of Chicago, and Chicago is where my dad is from. So to have won my first ring, like in the
Yeah.
Chicago suburbs, where, by the way, my dad, I can hear him like just in his urn flipping out the whole time that I'm in Chicago, going, "Please be safe, child. Please
I
just
bet.
don't go
I bet.
outside. It's so dangerous." Like, so it was
Wow.
just so, so, so special to me to
Yeah.
pull down that win there. And
To do it
I
in
knew,
Chicago for your dad, kind of, in a
yeah,
way. Yeah.
100% for my dad.
And actually, speaking of that, you told me what your favorite hand is. Can you tell that story and why that relates to your dad?
So my favorite hand is Jack Nine suited, and actually one of my pictures in my winner's picture set, it has the Jack Nine suited because the
Jack
win is
nine suited.
dedicated to him.
Cool.
His name was Jack, and unfortunately he passed away at 59. And for all of his flaws, right? Like he spent his entire life working and doing for others and got to
Mhm.
enjoy almost none of it. So
That's awesome.
him losing him is what really shifted me and made me
Yeah.
decide that we're
Right.
gonna really do this to the max, right? And we're gonna wear our colors on the outside
Right.
and try to live this vibrant life for him
So isn't it he who gives you inspiration in some ways?
in all the ways, in every
Yeah.
single way. I wake
Mhm.
up every day and I do this for him. And I actually have a my legs are done in full color wraps. So
Uh-huh.
my tattoos are for him, and he walks with me every single day and every
Mhm.
single tournament that I step into.
You know what's really cool, Rob, is Jack Nine to her is kind of like she feels like he's around her when she plays Jack Nine. And I told her about our cardinal story with our mother who passed away 2 years ago, and how we see cardinals and we feel like it's her, and that they don't even act like birds. They act different. They act kind of like her. So just really cool to hear that Jack Nine for you is kind of like that connection to your dad.
Yeah, it's like getting a warm hug every time I peel it.
It's comforting, yeah.
Does it have to be
Yeah.
suited, or Jack Nine offsuit's good too?
Any Jack Nine is great, but Jack Nine suited, it gets played. If it's suited, it gets played.
Gotcha. Very cool. So let's talk about types of players. Rob kind of talked a little bit with you about this, but what is your way to find out, who are the weak type players, who are the loose passive players, who are the hyper aggressive maniacs, who's kind of your average tournament regular? This might be the guy you see at TCH. And then kind of who's your online superstar, young guy, Asian, crazy, aggressive, played a lot of hands kind of person. How do you kind of group people into these categories?
So the number one thing is to watch what they're showing down with, right? That's how you're gonna know. That's how you're gonna know for sure, like what they are. Is when a hand gets to showdown, what 2 cards did they get there with, and how did they get there? If it's your average tournament player, like it's probably pretty ABC. And you're going, all right, well, you're on a pretty mid to tight range. You're easy to play against. A hyper loose aggressive is the guy that shows up on the river and has you completely over a barrel with 7-5 off, and you're going, what happened? How?
Right. And I'm out of the tournament.
Yeah, like they're yours. Take them, sir. And we run into that a lot, right? Weak type players are my favorite, right? Because they're obvious. They're shaking, they're 3-betting to an obscene size, whenever they have it, and when they don't have it, they're out of the hand. They
those
will
are the
literally.
guys I play. Those are the guys I play in the senior events, and they're so fun to play against. I just raise them all the time.
I know, and I heard it said once that when somebody like that raises you really big, they're just paying you to wait and pick a different spot. And it really shifted the way I thought about it. So I've always kind of liked that.
That's cool.
And then the average tournament player, I think that people forget that we're there to play cards and have fun. So I think that's the first thing is that person there to make money? Or is that person there to spend the day playing poker with their friends and have a little bit of fun? Because if they're there to just have a little bit of fun, guess what? They're probably going to play 6 sign off, and they're going to giggle the whole time that they play it. And God bless it, we want all of them, because that's what makes poker fun.
That's true.
That's who I want to play with. I don't want to play with the pros all the time. They're no fun.
Did you notice those guys? They're drinking beer. They've just come off the golf course with their buddies. Yeah. They paid $120 for the tournament. They don't really care that much about it. They're just having fun. They're laughing. They're watching sports. Yeah, I know.
Living their best life. Literally living their best life. And I think that that's the pure magic of this game. And that even as a full-time player, if you can extract that amount of enjoyment, then that's really where that's the profit in this game. That's really where we capitalize as humans.
So what about the online superstar young pro type person? The 23-year-old super pro.
Look, please show up at my table with patches and looking like you live in your mom's basement and have never seen a girl before. You're my favorite person in the whole wide world.
Why is that?
Because they're just, one, they don't know how to talk to girls. And so a very in-your-face female will oftentimes mess them up. I hate to put it that way. But some of these guys are geeks. I love them. If you hand me an actual online superstar, a lot of them are robots and they don't know how to people, and it drives them insane.
So they're not good live because they don't have the personality, is what you're saying.
And they don't have the people skills
or
the ability to adjust. They sit there and they go, well, the chart says, so I'm going to do what the chart says. And then I drive them crazy because I'm sitting there talking about titties and strippers and all the fun and fishing and bubbles and unicorns with anybody that will talk to me. And that kid is there with his headphones in going, my God, would you please just make her shut up?
Oh, that's funny. So you literally get them on tilt just by like your personality.
If I can get you on tilt, I'm going to. If for a second you like it appears that I am bothering you, I'm going to pick. Like I am the ultimate little sister.
That's great. Well, you need to show this podcast to all those geeky guys so they can kind of
No,
understand each other.
I don't want them
You don't want them to know. Oh, that's funny.
to know.
Any other questions on this one, Robbie? I know this was kind of one of your questions.
Not really on this one. I was wondering about as far as I came across a segment of Negrani's instructions that he talks about bad beats, and I was wondering. So he says that with bad beats, he oftentimes will reach out to somebody he respects as far as their skill level, and he asks them to go through the hand with him and tell him truthfully, did I play that wrong or was it bad luck? And he said, one of the best skills that he's learned, I think, is true assessment of whether he misplayed something or if it was truly bad luck. And he relies on high skilled players to help him guide him in that. Do you have anyone that you kind of bounce off your bad beats or your tough hands with?
Oh, for sure. There's a select few people that get a text almost every tournament series that says, "I think I fucked up."
Yeah.
Okay, or I need your feedback on this. I need you to look at this. Like, and inevitably, no matter what the study says or what the charts say in that spot against whatever player I was against, that person almost always gives me feedback that I would have never thought of before and shows me a way in which, even though it might have been a genuine bad beat, that I could have potentially played the hand differently. Like I seriously like have some of the very best people in my life to offer perspective. Like, and the amount of times that I have tapped into that human and their ability to lend perspective about the game and gently coach when I have screwed up, like has grown me exponentially.
So is there any type of player that gets you on tilt? Like I know you get a lot of these guys on tilt, and I can see how. Is there any type of personality type that can kind of get under your skin or kind of get you not playing your best?
Yeah, there's a couple. Like, so one, if you're just mean and hateful, like it just gets under my skin. Like if you've showed up to be a dick that day, which not it happens very, very rarely. It really is infrequent.
Right.
But it does happen. And it just clicks my trigger. Like I am the nicest, most sunniest person in the world until like I'm in like that sort of confrontational situation, and then I just don't handle it very well. I get very aggressive back, as I'm sure the people can imagine.
I could see it. Yeah.
So that tilts me, and then I cannot play sit and goes. Like, look, just to be honest with you, like if I sit down at a sit and go with a bunch of drunks, I am automatically tilted. Like it's just not me at my best. I
You
hate
just go
it.
all in on your second hand.
Yeah, like or just like
Yeah.
I sit there and I just like I don't know, like there's just something in my brain where I just like hate every second of the experience, like, and I
Yeah.
just don't want to be there. Like,
It's
and
funny,
so I don't
it's funny you
play
say
I
that.
don't play them anymore.
When you say that, I crush sit and goes. I crush them. I win 2 out of 3 typically.
I'm horrible at them.
I don't
I'm
know why. That's like
absolutely
my format.
horrible.
Yeah, those are my format right there. I don't know why. It's weird. Well, you can always bounce hands off of me, Maggie, in the future. Just text me.
Perfect. I might swap you for some sit and go info because like
Yeah.
I am just
Yeah.
absolutely atrocious at them.
I've got some ideas for you. So last
Cool.
question on this slide here is, you know, I told you that I've been playing poker 20 years and that it actually has really helped me in the corporate world. It's helped me in the boardroom. It's helped me in negotiations for my job, things like that. Do you think that if you went back into the corporate world, your poker skills would help you?
Oh my God, yeah. And even while I was still in the corporate world, they were actively helping me because they teach you to, one, pay attention to what everybody else is doing before
Right.
anything else. Like it really doesn't matter what you have in front of you if you're able to be tuned into what that other person is doing. And I think that skill is invaluable in business and understanding
Yep.
motivations, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then two, the ability to strategize and be patient. Because in poker, you constantly have to be thinking about, well, I'm going to call with this, and then how am I going to play out these streets? Or what am
Mhm.
I going to do in reaction to this action? How am I going to zig when they zag? And
Mhm.
I think that it's a really natural progression into business. I also think it's why you see a lot of poker players after they make it in poker branch out and go into serious business, because I think that is kind of a natural next step.
It is.
Mhm.
It's true.
That's interesting.
I'll sit across the table when I'm doing a big contract negotiation, and 20 years later, after doing poker, I can almost read their souls. It's amazing. I mean, I was thinking back early in my career, I just didn't have that skill, and I just now I know exactly where the pressure points are. I know kind of how to get them off their game. I know how to pressure them into things that we really want. It's been just absolutely huge for me in business.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Like just the ability to adjust to other people, I think, is a skill that we stopped teaching somewhere along the lines, and I'm not sure why.
Hmm. Absolutely. So let's talk about GTO and
Okay.
pre-flop and the pre-flop chart. Game theory optimal is what GTO stands for. It's essentially a solver, a way to use math and odds to determine which type of action you should take on any particular hand you're dealt in poker, and also any situation you're in at the table. So what is your thought here? How much study have you done on GTO? How
Uh,
much do you use it? Do you use it more in tournaments, more in cash?
so I would under no circumstances classify myself as a GTO player. Although I think if you ask people that spend time with me, they would probably automatically click and call me a GTO player because I study. So oftentimes when we study, we are studying game theory, right? Like we're studying perfect. So I use a ton of that to be able to adjust at the table. Now, what I will say is that a lot of people take GTO and they try to memorize charts, which doesn't work. Like they try to memorize all of these situations. And what do I do on King 2 9 rainbow when I have Jack of diamonds and 3 of clubs in my hand versus the big blind and the small blind? And humans are just not capable of thinking on that level or memorizing to that degree. So for me, it is most helpful to work to break it down into structures that are applicable. So I like to run back through hands and maybe run them through a solver and see what the solver suggests, and then kind of go my own way with it, to be honest
Okay.
with you,
Okay.
and take apart why the solver suggests doing it that way and try to understand the suggestions that it's making so that I can carry away with it with perspective. Now, with all of that being said, the truth is that I'm actually kind of dumb. Like I hate to admit it, but like, and that's why I study so hard. So a lot of the solvers turn to complete mush in my brain and they don't work for me. All the colors all over the place is distracting and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I rely very heavily on my coaching and on other people who are smarter than I am and have the ability to articulate the thought process to share that with me, and then to drill the ever loving daylights out of how I'm thinking about it. Because I think that if we're trying to memorize outputs, that we're screwed. But if we're trying to always think in terms of how can I adjust and where are the rungs in this box and how can I parkour my way through this, then I'm in an advantage.
You know where it really helps me, and it has helped me. I'm not a huge math person either. I'm really a field player, but I have the last couple of years been studying this more and more. But it helps me a lot for those kind of middling hands, like Jack 10 suited, Jack 10 offsuit, 10-9 suited. It's really helped me in those middling hands to determine what to do and whether I should call or be in the hand at all. So just for me personally, it's really helped me. And it's also helped me when you get down to those lower pairs, pocket fours, pocket threes, pocket deuces, and I get into a really tough spot, either raising or deciding whether to call. It's definitely helped me in those situations.
Oh, for sure. And I will tell anybody that like pre-flop charts and being strong in your pre-flop fundamentals is the starting place for any player. Like that is like where you should start if you are not profitable in this game. It's the very first place because you can't fix post-flop unless you have strong pre-flop.
Hmm. It's true. Did you
Tom, this
notice you?
kind of this
Yeah,
kind of
go ahead.
reminds me of analytics in sports.
It's true. It's what it
You
is.
know,
That's
it,
exactly what it
if
is.
This is
if all
analytics.
you follow is the analytics, you end up going for it on fourth down every time, and
Yeah.
you make
Robin,
a huge blunder.
Robin and I on this Sports Guyz channel, most of our episodes are about football, and we talk a lot about analytics in football, and that's exactly what this is. And
Yeah.
coaches that go only by analytics in football, a lot of times they get burned because they go for it on fourth down too many times. And so you need to have a good mix of the analytics and look at it and use that as a guide, but you need to also use that gut feel.
Game
And
experience.
that's what Maggie and I are talking about. She and I are field players, but
Yep.
it's not. We're not going to completely ignore the solver. And the solver does have some value as a
I
guide.
actually love that. So for example, there was a hand that I played last week, and it's a hand that I ran by like my main person for feedback. I played the hand exactly solver correct, right? Like if you run it through the sims, it's 100% the way that you should play it every time. I squeezed ace queen from the big blind. I squeezed right into kings. So
Oh, geez.
okay, whatever. But knowing the player that I was squeezing and taking 2 steps backwards after the hand, I should have just flatted them. And it's something that you would never think of unless you have played that player as many times as I've actually played them. And like it was a pure mistake. Like
And this
even
is
though
why.
it's the right thing on paper, but it was an absolute mistake in that moment that cost me my tournament life. And
No
it's not a
question
bad
about it.
beat, it's a punt.
No question about it. And that's why I don't agree with you that you say you're dumb. I totally disagree. You're smart because to be a high level poker player and win a ring,
Yeah.
the only way you can do it, think about all the variables. Okay, you're dealt 2 cards. What are the things you got to think about? Who's to your right? Who's to your left? Who's got position on you? Where are you on the table in terms of the hand? Are you on the button? Are you in the cutoff position? Are you in the big blind? Are you somewhere in the middle of the table? So you got to think about that. You got to think about this solver. Is this a hand that I even should be playing, or should I just throw it away anyway, no matter what the bet is? And you have all these different variables, and a lot of times you've got 20 to 30 seconds to make a decision or less. So I don't know. I just think poker
Yeah.
players
You're
mind
processing a lot of information.
a lot.
That's why it's so important to develop structures for the way that you think about things, is because it allows you to funnel that information through and for you to make decisions the same way that you would in the restaurant industry, right? Like, so that's really how I play poker. Is I take all of my how to run a restaurant and I just apply it to poker.
That's
Good.
interesting.
That's really good. Yeah, I like that. So you would say GTO is what percentage of your game, do you think? Is it 20%?
I would say that the foundation of my understanding of the game is 100% based in GTO, and that
Okay.
I am always looking to exploit and break the box.
Okay. Gotcha. Did you notice Jack 9 suited is in the raise category and Jack 9 offsuit is in the fold category?
Yep.
Did you
There's
notice
a
that?
reason suited's my favorite.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking about your hand there. Of course,
You
my
always
hand,
have more equity suited, always.
my hand is King 10. So, and I play King 10 offsuit even almost every time. I just love King 10. So.
King 10 offsuit is almost a pure open from under the gun. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing that hand almost full time. You just have to be careful not to run into landmines with it.
No, that's right. That's absolutely right. All right. So achieving relentless improvement of your game. This goes back to another really great question Rob had earlier in the program. Mastering the basics, studying, observing, learning from experienced players, practice, practice, practice. You actually flipped it on the other side of what Rob said. He said Negreanu's playing 80%, studying 20. You're saying study 80, play 20.
If you're new.
If you're
Like,
new, yeah.
Yeah, I think that the ratio depends on your need for learning, probably.
yeah, if you're playing full time and you are professional and you are established in this game, then the 20% is probably the right marker for you. And truthfully, I would be surprised to find 20% of players putting that in.
Right. So the practice for you, is that online poker?
That's all forms of poker. The practice comes in the forms of what we drill. Anytime that we're playing online, anytime that I'm playing live. Live
Okay.
is my bread and butter. And so live is really like my arena.
Mm-hmm. Got it. You got the art of bluffing. You've got calculating pot odds, which of course goes to the math. Making, if you get 4-1 odds and you've got a huge stack, then obviously it's kind of a no-brainer kind of thing. Having your poker friends analyze your game, it sounds like you do that all the time
Mm.
to give you areas for improvement.
For sure.
You said the ones who care about you the most are the ones that'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly. They really will. Like, and I think that the people that go out of their way to let you know about your tells, like you owe them a debt of gratitude. They never have to do that as a player.
No question. Knowing when to fold, that's really hard for some people.
It's
Yeah.
hard for all people, by the
It,
way.
it actually
Like,
was really hard for me early on. I've gotten better at it. I think the way you do, I'm like, okay, I'm buying myself chips for later in the tournament, and I'm not sure about this hand. The gut's kind of going off, and so I've gotten better at it for sure. And then always having fun. Is that
yes,
something that you feel like you can always do? When you
that's
get
the
on,
most important thing. And I will tell anybody that if I can't show up happy and grateful to be there that day, then I need to go get drunk instead. It's more plus EV for me and everybody in my life.
plus EV.
Plus EV. Yes, it's more plus EV.
I like that. Tell us about this tattoo.
Um, oh, the Care Bear. So, actually, it's part of a full sleeve that I'm working on for kind of all of my poker memories. But I wear a Care Bears outfit to all of my main events now. So when I
Okay.
play, you'll see me in actual costume with squeaky ears and a squeaky tail, like giving hugs to everybody because my wish and my dream is to be able to be here and to live this life, like this crazy, crazy life. And just being able to embody that and wear my colors on the outside makes me very happy. So we added the wish bear on the outside of the arm to
So are you telling me that if you get heads up in the grano in the main event one day, you're going to be in the Care Bear outfit?
yeah. And I mean all of my well, hopefully I'm still doing it by then. Hopefully it happens soon enough for me to still be doing that. But anytime I play a main event on any of these circuits, I'm in costume.
Super cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
So we've got like a pink one, a blue one, a green one.
So tell us about treating it like a business. I know that you mentioned that earlier, but there's lots of steps, right? Setting up an LLC. We talked about bankroll management, always celebrating days you make profit, enjoying the freedom of working for yourself, making sure you have all the write-offs, you keep all your receipts.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit
Really,
about kind of those steps you take to make sure you're always treating it like a business.
the key is sort of tracking everything and maintaining some of that discipline. I think that the hardest part of poker as a business is that we have a lot of not profitable days, right? So it can be really difficult to have the balance and to take time off, or actually to take the admin days that are required to do the planning. So like
Mhm.
some of the ways that we treat it like a business are trying to plan stops well in advance and find lodging that is reasonably priced. Like I don't stay in the casinos a lot nowadays. Most of the time, I will find an Airbnb, even if it means that I have to drive an extra 10 minutes or I'm like kind of by myself that week because the
Mhm.
cost is so much better and because I can eat healthier.
Mhm.
I think that your networking is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly important in poker because at the end of the day, our brand is ourselves and who we are as players. And um, I don't think enough players take that seriously, right? Like that how you treat other people is your brand as a human. So for me, my brand is to radiate good and to be kind to others, and I always want to go foot forward with that.
Mhm.
So between the tracking and the playing and then constantly studying to improve, I mean it's day in and day out. That's what I do.
So what's your
Like
feel about finding a backer? I know you said you don't have a backer, you would never do that. You would never sell action. What do you feel about those players that do that, that find themselves a backer, that sell some of their action?
no, I wouldn't say that I would never find a backer and I would never sell action. I currently don't have a backer and I occasionally sell action. Um, I think that to each their own, right? And I think far be it for me to judge anyone's personal money situation or what allows them to play the game. I am fortunate enough right now to be able to self-support, but that might not always be the case. And I'll do what it takes to be in this game, right? Whether that looks like pitching cards or selling actions or potentially having backing. The truth is that poker is really, 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 really hard. And the downswings in this game are brutal. Like the fact is that like you really can go broke. It's a not only a possibility, but like it's a reality for a lot of our players, and a lot
Mhm.
of people um struggle their whole lives within this game.
Mhm.
So I just think that whatever your personal situation is, as long as it works for you and you're able to provide a roof for your family and find fulfillment, then good for you. Like that's what matters.
That makes sense. What about parlaying your tournament into sponsorships like you did on the Rungood Series?
I'm all about that. And again, I think that anybody that can be doing that should be doing that. Not everybody has the opportunity, right? Like, in some ways, uh, I heard somebody say it. They said that I've spent my life monetizing my personality. And so, in some ways, that's exactly what sponsorships are doing. And that, again, that's not for everybody. Um, just like vlogging and content really isn't
Yep.
for everybody. Like,
Yep.
I know some players who are incredibly passionate about the content side, and I love them for it because I love their content. It brings me so much joy. I've tried doing the vlogging thing and I hated every second of it.
Did you
Like,
really?
oh my gosh, yeah, I found it to be a huge distraction and
Yeah.
draw from my game. Like to have to even think about whether or not I'm pulling
Right.
out a camera when I'm in this hand,
Right.
or and it gave me more tells too. Like, oh my gosh, I'm pulling my cell phone out, getting ready to go all in. You can't
Right.
tell that at all, right? Like,
I think you
no.
could vlog. I think you could vlog on YouTube for extra income if you were doing like cash games, things like that. Like Brad Owen does mostly cash games. He does some tournaments. But yeah, I agree with you. If you're in a big time tournament, you're deep and you really need concentration. Vlogging would be
Yeah.
the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
Totally
And
agree.
if you look at it, the people that are content creators are content creators. They might be killer players, and a lot of times they really are killer players on top of it. But I think that like we have to be honest about where we're making our money, right? Like, and where I am
Yeah.
hoping to be making my money is in
Right.
poker.
Do you know Poker Face Ash?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Actually, I love her. She's one of the
I like
people
her
that
vlog a
kind
lot.
of inspired me to do this.
Yeah.
And her vlog is it. I can't wait for her vlog to come back. She
Yeah.
just announced that her vlog's coming back after 8 months.
Yeah. She's really good. I like her vlog. I'm looking forward to it coming back. I like her vlogs a lot.
But I was with her this past weekend in
Were you?
Tulsa, and yeah,
Oh,
because
cool.
she's part of the Rungood team, and so we
That's
were
cool.
there for Nikki Limo's win, and I told her, I said, I just don't know how you do it because she and I are both what you call INFJs on the
Right.
MBTI scale,
Yep.
and after a long tournament day, I feel half dead. I just want to go lay on the floor. Like, so I don't know, like, where she gets like the energy to also pour into the content creation. And I just
Right.
think it's so inspiring.
It is cool. It's really cool. How about making it not feel like a job? Like, what's your way of doing that? how do you, because I mean, and I told my kids this, right? Find a profession that doesn't feel like a profession and get paid for it.
So I was the most buttoned up, like to a T, to the letter. I mean, out of bed at 5:30 every morning, in the office by 6 a.m. Like I was the epitome of like corporate, and like it felt like that's who I needed to be. Like,
Hmm.
so for me, living this life now where nobody ever tells me to shut up, nobody is annoyed. Well, I mean, they might be annoyed by my personality, but they don't have a choice. They just have to put up with me. Like, um, that's what makes it not feel like a job to me. I get to wake up every day and play cards. Like, if this ever starts to feel
Right.
like a
To
job, we
play
have
a
a
game.
like. Look,
Yeah.
at that point, like, if you're waking up every day and you're coming to play cards, like we need to have a different conversation, honey. Like, and if you're feeling like that's a job, like, because it's not a
Right.
job. Like, it might be the way that we're earning our living, but we're playing cards on a Tuesday. Like, could you have
Right.
some gratitude, please?
Right.
Like,
I like
and
that
if you can't,
attitude.
and if you can't have gratitude, go work at Walmart for about 3 weeks, and then you come back and you tell me how you're doing.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, you go.
The final point here is a recommendation from Rob, and that is be like Daniel Negreanu or Maggie Fox.
Be like Daniel. Maggie's trying to be like Daniel. Like
Yeah.
I'm the truth
Be like
is that
Maggie.
like
Be like Maggie.
But I mean, the
And
truth
then
is that like I am a first year poker player, and I think it's easy to get caught up in the magic and the fun. But like I am in like this is hard. Like this is not an easy living, and
Mhm.
so yeah, be like Daniel Negreanu, but Daniel Negreanu went broke a bunch of times, and so
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
true. You did.
maybe think very carefully about whether or not this is really like the thing that you want to do. Like again, like I laughed when I read it, like every time I read it, like because the first thing you read, like should I go play poker professionally, is no. If you like poker, you should keep playing poker for fun and keep your day job.
Right, right.
They're right.
It's
As
true.
So
a professional player, like, and I hate to say pro poker player because I'm not. Like I am not a pro. Like I'm a full-time circuit grinder is what I am. And I hope to be a pro amongst those pros one day, but like we're not even close to having earned that. Um,
so I've been wondering this whole time, what about your goals? What are your goals in poker? What do you have specific things, or is it just I want to keep growing and becoming more of part of different circuits and having bigger and bigger successes? I mean, are there specific goals that you're setting for yourself?
Um, yeah, so I have some like really big long-term stretch goals. So one of them is to before I die. So I mean, hopefully we live to like 100, right? And we're playing poker the whole time. To before I die, make it in the top 10 money list of all time for tournament players, which that's a pretty staggering number. That's a
Boy,
big, big, big stretch
that's a
goal.
big goal. That's a big
It's a
goal. Yeah.
big goal, and I understand that that's a very, very large goal. And then on a potentially more achievable but still very large stretch goal, is I would like to be good enough at this game and able to articulate my thought processes well enough that Jordan Drummond, BBZ, invites me to be a part of his daily seminars that they host on their
Mhm.
site with their
That's cool.
coaches. Because
Yeah.
I have personally experienced more growth in my game through the daily seminars that they offer and through what those coaches are providing every single
Mhm.
day than ever before. And to be able to give back in that way really matters to me.
I really see, because of your training background, your corporate background, your love for the game, I see you as a killer coach one day. I really do. I think you have the personality for it. You understand what it takes to be successful in this business. You're still learning, of course, but I think you'd be a really good coach one day.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
I agree
believe
with
it.
all that.
Now, tell us about this.
I thought you were gonna say get a Care Bear sponsorship.
I'm actually already trying for that. So I'm
That
trying to get sponsored by Care Bears and Knockarounds because I wear their sunglasses full time at the table.
that's cool.
That's awesome. Tell us about this ring here on the right. I
Oh,
mean, that,
oh my
I mean,
gosh.
I mean that's every poker player's dream. I mean, I've been pursuing it for 20 years. So,
Man, it's the dream. Like when I tell, like if you when you look at my picture, I think you can tell by the look on my face that it is hands down the happiest moment of my life, and it truly, truly is. Like I just, I don't know, I just feel so grateful and so blessed, and the even bigger part of it is the people that have been there for me. Like
yeah, yeah.
I'm close with many, many, many of the dealers. And so for me as an individual, I will tell you that I am probably one of the best supported players in the entire circuit, just
Mhm.
because I know for a fact that when I sit down, the dealer across from me is cheering for me.
Yes,
Like
for sure. For
and
sure.
it's crazy because like
Do you
they
think
get up
it's
and they give me a hug and like we're talking the whole time because these are people that I care about as individuals.
Do you think that's
So
because of your personality? Do you think that's because you're a female poker player and they want to be there to be more females?
It's like
What do you
human
think?
connection.
Do you
oh,
think
it's
it's
all human. So I tell everybody, actually in Hammond, none of the players in Hammond knew who I was, but all of the dealers know me. And every time a dealer comes to the table, I get up and I give them a hug and I ask them how they're doing and I talk to them because I know them and I hug.
Mhm.
Um, so players started to ask, "What are you, a dealer or something?" And I would just say, "Yeah, we're something." And so what I tell people is that I am the feral adopted circus child of all the dealers,
I love it.
and
Love
they
it.
really do take care of me. I'm not kidding you. The first time that I went heads up, I had people bringing me food because they knew I hadn't eaten all day. I had
Mhm.
tournament staff tell me that we knew you didn't have any of your like player friends here. If you had won, we were going to stop the other tournaments so we could all come be in your picture with you.
That's so cool.
Like,
Wow.
that doesn't happen. And so for me, like, and I posted to my Facebook page the next day. I said, like, look, the other guy won the tournament, but like I won at life, and I'm winning at
So,
life every single time I come out here because of
so,
the experiences that I'm getting with these people.
so speaking of that, why is this picture with your friends so important? Like for people who are not poker players, why is it so critical that not only that you had this incredible moment, you got your ring, you won, by the way, with my favorite hand, and but that you have your poker friends around you. Why is it so important?
Because we just don't get here alone. That's the truth of it. Is like you can like say all day long, and we have all this shit on social media about people making it alone and nobody cheered for me and blah 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 blah. But the truth of the matter is that every single person who has made it in this world and who is successful has some form of a critical support system. And if you're not humble enough to admit that you can't get anywhere without your people, then you're probably not very deserving of the things that you have. The truth
Mhm.
is that like these are the people that scrape me up off the ground day in and day out. I mean,
Mhm.
every single person in that picture watched me have a really, really challenging summer in Vegas where I did not perform well. I did not play well. Variance did not come my way and save me when I was not playing well. And it was really
Mhm.
tough, like, but it was a necessary learning experience. And
Mhm.
Mhm.
so all those same people that were willing to sit in the muck with me when things were not good are also the same people that were there and were the loudest voices in the world when the good things happened. And I just, there's so much value to that as a human. It is worth more than the prize money every time.
So you know
It's
you're
pretty cool looking at how happy your friends are.
They all are genuinely so happy for me and they
Yeah.
love me. Like, and it's obvious. Like there's no falsehood there. Like, so Mark Drews, he's standing next to the gentleman in the red hoodie. He's the second guy on the right there. He had a heart attack a couple of days after this event. Mark Drews, every time he sees me walk through a tournament area, he brings me food. He brings me candy. He makes sure I've eaten.
That's awesome.
Like these are people who have gone out of their way to care about me as individuals. Bo and Tessa in that picture. So Brian and Tessa, they're both dealers. I mean, oh my
Yeah,
God, I roomed with them. Like we were in the same housing complex. So
yeah,
like I was coming home every day after tournaments and like they're asking how I did. So
right.
like then to get to bring home a ring, like I just the words to describe how important those people and those moments are, like
Mhm.
it just doesn't exist.
For sure. And the only person I know in this picture is Matt Higgins. I've played against him a bunch of times, so I know Matt very well.
Matt is one of the best. And I would say that if you are somebody that is struggling in the poker world, that he is maybe one of the most even keeled voices
He is.
about the reality of this game. And
Yep.
that sometimes you're the windshield and sometimes you're the bug. And he is always good for a hug and some perspective and to kind of dust you off and go, it'll be fine. Keep going.
Super cool. Super cool. Well, you said your dream was to become one of the biggest money earners of all time before you die. My dream before I die is to achieve what you've already achieved, which is to get a ring. It's funny. I tell my dad and I tell people who don't play poker all the time that I really don't care about the money. I care about the ring. And people who don't play poker and don't play in the WSOP, they just don't understand that. They can't conceptualize why the money is really not that important to me and why the ring is more important.
But the ring
So
means something. It really does. It's something to hand down to your kids or to your grandkids and say, I was really good at this one time.
it's hard to explain why it's so important. It's just, unless you're a poker player, you
You
understand it.
have value in it. You value it.
Yes.
It's an achievement. It's an achievement
It's
that very few people get,
and it's hard. I think that like
really hard.
we don't realize like how hard it is.
It's
But think
true.
how cool that is. You've been there 3 times.
I know.
Unbelievable.
That's
It's
awesome.
unbelievable for me. Like,
Well, Maggie, let's go look at a couple of your hands. You ready?
yeah.
Let's go look, and then we'll close it out. You can walk us through a couple of these like you're the
About me?
If I told you when I started playing big tournament,
So I mean, if you look here, I mean, I'm pretty significantly short stacked, like comparatively to where he's at this whole time. So I think
Yeah, you were short stacked a lot. Yeah.
yeah, so my
There we go.
mentality like in these spots was I need hands to get
Yeah.
it all in with and double. Like because the
Right.
only way that I'm gonna win is if I get chips.
Right. For sure. And you said he was a really good player, right?
Oh yeah, I mean he had played so strong all night long. Like he had made very few mistakes. And at one point he had been the short stack. I mean, he had taken some really brutal coolers and I mean he worked his ass
There it
off
is.
and he ground and
There
ground.
it
Yeah,
is.
that Magic King. Whew.
Magic King.
Yeah, that was a big moment. I mean, those are
That's
true
huge.
flip hands. I mean, like when somebody turns over ace 10 in that situation, you're actually like, you're not that disappointed. You're like, okay, well, I need him to not hold, but at least we're flipping pretty fairly. Like,
Right. You're wearing the pink sunglasses. Do you always wear those? Do you have lots of pairs?
I have about 8 different pairs of sunglasses. So I always have a different hat, sunglass, and shoe combination, and it all is like color coordinated.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like to bring the swag. But those sunglasses actually are like officially my lucky sunglasses. Those are the same ones I was wearing when I won the ring.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
So,
if things are not going well, I go get the pink shades.
so you said you didn't know how good a player this guy was until after the tournament,
Yeah,
right?
so like I had an idea that he was pretty good like while we were in game because I had been watching him and then after the tournament like I was not allowed to have my phone on this table. So I came back out of the tournament and my coach and a bunch of other people that knew me had just blown my phone up. I had probably 100 messages about just how good Sai actually was and to watch out and like where to ramp up aggression. And I really wish that I had looked at my phone somewhere in the midst of all of this because it probably would have changed the way that I played some of these hands. Like I know that there were some spots where he just completely pulled one over on me, as he should have, right? Like because I did not realize how aggressive he was willing to be in his play. And more power to him too, because he really did ramp up the aggression in some of the just truly critical spots. And I think I might have underestimated how capable he actually was of doing that.
So are you changing your hand selections when you're heads up? I mean, I know you typically should, but
Oh yeah. Heads up is so hard to play because the range has become so wide. Because I mean you really are playing almost any two cards for the most part, and it becomes blind versus blind play, which gets exponentially more complicated. So what I will say is that since this experience, I've actually doubled down on all of my heads up and blind versus blind play because this was the first time in a long time that I felt uncomfortable at a poker table, right? Like most of the time when I'm in a spot, I'm pretty sure of what to do. And if I'm not really sure, it's usually a mix. Like it's usually like sometimes we fold it and sometimes we call it. This was one of those situations where almost the whole time that I was sitting there, I felt like I was like on fire and burning alive and going, I'm not sure what to do. I'm panicking, help. Like,
Was there
so
anything about his playing that you could pick up on?
I knew he was aggressive. And that was part of like when people are being that aggressive with me, heads up, I have a little bit of a harder time hand selecting because it becomes a question of, well, do I want to fight fire with fire, which is kind of my natural setting of like, oh, you're going to bet me? Okay, fine, let's go. Versus slowing down and trying to win and trying to hand select. So I think that I overthought some of those spots a little bit too much, to be honest with you. And that is my biggest struggle live is there are a lot of times where like I sort of have that like gut feeling of you should do this and I don't listen to it. Like for whatever reason I don't listen to it. And inevitably I should have always listened to that gut feeling. So I think that's what I learned most out of this entire heads up session is that like every single time I didn't follow like my intuitive lead, I got smoked.
so what do you think he was thinking about your game, about you?
I think he thought I was a nit because I had been so card dead almost the entire final table that I barely played any hands. It had actually been mentioned 3 or 4 times throughout the stream how tight I was playing and how surprised that they were that I was playing because the commentators know me fairly well. So I think he thought that I was nitty, and I actually think he thought I was he so he didn't think I was a full-time tournament player, and he found out after. Like he got very suspicious.
Here
And
we
then
go.
some
Let's go, Mags.
yeah, so actually to be honest with you, this was a really bad push. This was a huge
Yeah,
mistake with this many big blinds.
right.
And
Yeah.
going back, like I saw a suited ace. He had been very aggressive and kind of a
You
bully. And
should
I
have smooth called maybe.
Yes, and I thought this is my opportunity. So, like when I ran hands back with some other people for feedback, this is one of the main hands that was pointed out as like, hey, we messed this up and like we really could have won the tournament maybe had we played this
Right,
hand a little differently.
right, for sure, for sure. So is this the tournament that your coach kind of broke down for you and
Yes.
tore apart? So what was
Yes.
his message coming out of it?
Oh man. So it's to stick to fundamentals really, and that like we need to be focused in on these spots. I need to go back and break down some more of the kind of minutia. But like the truth is that like what we kind of came away with is that I'm understudied in this spot, which of course I am, because the only way that you get experience in these spots is by doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it just for us it helps to kind of clear a pathway of like what we're going to work on, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, pushing 25 big blinds with a6 was like definitely jumpy and aggressive.
Probably not smart. Yeah. Are you always
Yeah.
thinking about how many big blinds you have, like the whole time?
I try to be. So because I am not as math oriented, when the blinds get as high as they were here, I start to have trouble keeping up and counting. So um, I have to actually slow down sometimes and physically like count out the chips. And I didn't have my phone. So like when I say like I'm kind of dumb, like almost every tournament I play, I'm constantly counting my chips and then just dividing the big blinds so I know. So I was very hamstrung here with no phone. And it made me realize that I need to be better on those skills, like on my mental math. So I started actually after this doing some like more basic multiplication drills to help me, as silly as that seems.
Was he
Because
bluffing
it,
a lot? Like, did you think he might be bluffing here? Was he
yes,
bluffing?
and what was frustrating for me is I didn't know how to bluff catch him because I was so understudied in the spot. Like I looking back at this versus like where I'm at now, even just a month, like outside of this, like I've studied these spots so much more. I feel like I would play this very differently.
So this is the exact kind of spot you would want to spend a lot of time on in terms of study. Right.
Yes, blind versus blind is critical, and that's at the end of the day, that's all that this is. When you're playing heads up, you're just playing blind versus blind. And there are specialized heads up study spots, but like if you can get a foundation in that, then I think that you're going to have a lot more opportunity heads up. Because at the very least, then you're not out there kind of in the wind with these like giant ranges where people are basically playing almost any two cards because you almost have to be. Um, and it just helps you to studying those spots helps to give you some guidance, right? Like, and here's what I do, and here's why I do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because like you saw that he three bet me or he raised me with seven deuce, and I should have called
Right,
with the queen. Like I know now that I should almost always call that spot, but I didn't know
right,
then.
right, exactly. Yeah, he's just betting because he's continuing essentially.
Yeah, so what he's doing here is he's betting what's called a polarized range. So he's betting the very, very best hands and the very, very worst hands. And
Here
then
you go, you ace
yeah, here
queen.
goes.
Here you go. Let's go, Mags. Ship it.
Why is he betting the worst hands?
So that's
Trying to
that's
bluff?
Well, no, it's kind of the basic part of strategy once you get into like blind versus blind play, right? Like you need to balance out your very best hands with your very worst hands. So
I
in
see.
his situation, he can't just always only be raising when he has
Right.
jacks, queens, kings. So he has to throw some trash in there. Otherwise, I'm going to be able to pick him off really, really easily. And as you
Yeah.
can see, it was really effective. I mean, I
I
I
mean, you were
folded a lot of
leading.
hands I shouldn't.
You were definitely leading, but he is double gutted.
Hmm. Yeah, and this is a hand that like these hands are really hard to play. And
You would have
like
called this,
now,
right? Would
uh,
you call the double gutty?
it depends on who I'm playing against. It really does. Like, and I think it probably is a call there. I think you
I'm
have
kind
to
of
float
surprised
and
he
see the
laid.
turn.
I'm kind of surprised he laid it down. Really am.
But he thought I was a nit.
Yeah.
I promise you by then he thought that I was nitty and that like I was only doing that with made hands because I didn't want to lose.
Right. That makes sense. I don't like ace queen, Maggie. I lose with it every time. I always hit an ace and someone has ace king.
Yeah, I don't feel the most comfortable with the ace queen and the ace kings. I understand that they're mandatory to play in a lot of these spots, but they send me to the parking lot an awful lot. And in fairness, I overplay them a lot. So that's always the other side of it, right? Like is you look down at these premiums and then sometimes we just go a little bananas with them.
Right. Absolutely. Oh wow. What a flop.
Oh yeah.
So when your coach breaks this down, how does he do it? Does he do it hand by hand or what's his?
So he'll go through and he'll pull hands that are of significance, right? Like we just blow by the ones that kind of like don't matter or were properly played. If it was really like well played, then he'll make a comment. But we focus on areas where we make mistakes, right? Because that's what I'm paying him for. Like I'm not paying him to like tell me that it's all rainbows and bubbles and sunshine. I'm paying him to go, okay, that right there, we messed that up. Like, so let's fix this so that we can mess 10 other things up. Because that's what happens. As soon as you fix one thing, you open up 6 more leaks in your game.
Maggie taking the stab.
Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Would have worked too if he hadn't had a 10. That's usually how that goes.
I think you played pretty well there. Think about it. You get to the final table, right? You're playing against a really solid player. You are still growing. You're still trying to learn. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. To be honest, I'm proud of myself, and we've come a long way. And it was really, I didn't expect to get to be there that night. So just having that to as the learning experience, I really think propelled me into what happened the ensuing few weeks.
No doubt about it. Well, Maggie, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Sports Guys. You've really given us a great education. We've gotten to know you, your career. We're really excited to see where you go from here, and we're going to be big fans the rest of the way. And hopefully, we'll be your podcast home from now on. Anytime you have a big score, hopefully you come back on and join us.
I would love that.
And we definitely want to track everything you do from here on out. And any final thoughts or comments you want to make to all of your future podcasting fans?
I would say that if you really love something and you have a dream, like as insane as it is, and as terrifying and scary as it is, and as often as I will tell you of all people, like don't go be a pro poker player if you have like a full-time job. I will also tell you that there is immense value in putting yourself out there and burning all of your ships and taking those leaps. And that who we have the opportunity to become through the process and the connections that we develop when we are authentically ourselves is the most magical thing in the world. And that I owe everything that I have and everywhere that I am at to the people in my life that support me. And I'm grateful.
That's super inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
thank
Thank you guys so much for having me tonight and for doing this. I really am so grateful.
This has been a really great, exciting episode. I can't wait to see the reaction. And everybody, like this video, drop some comments down below for Maggie. I'm going to put some of her information down below, how you contact her separately from the podcast. And definitely give us some comments and some feedback on what you thought of the episode.
For sure. Thank you guys.
Okay.
Seriously.
Thanks so much. You have a great night. Bye, everybody.
Great talking to you.
Bye-bye.